Before Roswell was a headline, before UFOs filled the skies of sci-fi films, there was a quiet couple, Betty and Barney Hill. It's 1961, New Hampshire. Betty, a social worker, and Barney, a postal clerk, are driving home from a weekend in Montreal. A perfectly normal couple in a very abnormal time. They are an interracial couple in the early 1960s. They have every reason to avoid attention, not seek it. But that didn't matter. On the quiet highway that September night, something appeared in the sky. Something that would change their lives and the entire history of UFO encounters forever. Betty was the first to spot it, a strange light moving erratically across the sky. Barney pulled over near Indian Head to get a better view, raising his binoculars in silence. That's when rationality broke. This thing, it's not a plane, it's watching us. They got back in the car, fast. The glow followed them, hovered, shifted, no sound, no wings, just intelligence. Minutes later, their minds went blank. 2 hours later, they woke up 35 miles down the road with no memory of how they got there. And that was just the beginning. Benny and Barney Hill pulled into their driveway in Portsmouth. They were exhausted, but not in the normal way. It wasn't until the next morning that the strangeness began to sink in. Barney's shoes were scuffed. His zipper was torn. Betty's dress was ripped, with a strange pink powder on it that wouldn't wash out. The car? It was covered in circles of shiny metal-like residue, places where a compass would spin wildly when brought near. The clock on the dashboard had stopped. Theirs weren't the only clocks that lost time that night. Betty started having nightmares. Nightmares of a craft landing in the woods, of beings with large eyes and gray skin, of needles and cold tables, of a telepathic voice telling her, "Don't be afraid." She kept a journal. She tried to ignore it all. She couldn't. Weeks later, she wrote to a UFO group, not to seek fame, but to find answers. The Air Force got involved. Then, civilians. Then, skeptics. But no one could explain the missing time. The Hills knew something had happened to them. They just didn't know what. Yet. The missing time was the key. 2 hours of their lives gone. To trigger memories, they began hypnosis therapy with Dr. Benjamin Simon, a respected psychiatrist and neurologist. Separate sessions, no cross-contamination. What they revealed shook even him. Barney, reserved, rational, broke down in terror under hypnosis. His voice shook. He described being forced into a craft against his will. He saw large figures with dark wraparound eyes. He remembered instruments, pressures on his skin, and a leader with no expression, cold, silent. Betty's sessions were different. In her trances, she spoke calmly as if she were reliving a medical exam. Probes, skin samples, communication without words. "They showed me a star map," she said, "where they come from." Neither of them wanted publicity. They were embarrassed, terrified they'd be called crazy, or worse. But their stories matched, down to the smallest details, separately, without prompting. The streets of New Hampshire had never seen anything like this, and neither had the UFO community. One thing was clear. Betty and Barney Hill weren't storytellers. Something had happened to them. After the hypnosis, the most explosive moment came not from what they said, but what Betty drew. Under trance, she sketched the star configuration shown to her aboard the craft. A strange three-dimensional map with lines and nodes, a cluster of stars connected in space. For years, no one could make sense of it, until 1969, when a young astronomer named Marjorie Fish decided to test it against star charts. She built a 3D model of nearby star systems and found something incredible. Betty's map matched the view from a binary system 39 light years away, known as Zeta Reticuli. No scientist had reached this conclusion before Betty's drawing, yet her sketch fit almost perfectly. This was something Betty couldn't have faked, something no woman in 1961 had access to. It was the first time a UFO abduction case produced testable data. The believers took it as proof. The skeptics ignored it or called it a coincidence. But Betty's calm conviction and Barney's traumatic regression were hard to dismiss, especially after Barney passed away in 1969. Betty carried the story and the scars all the way to her death in 2004. Not for attention, but because she believed it was the truth. Betty and Barney Hill never tried to become UFO celebrities. Their story was leaked, investigated, debated, turned into a book called The Interrupted Journey. Then, in 1975, it was made into a TV film, The UFO Incident, starring James Earl Jones as Barney. The Hills encounter was the first widely publicized alien abduction in America. It set the template for decades of reports that followed: missing time, medical exams, telepathic contact, emotionless beings. It's impossible to trace the alien abduction phenomenon without passing through the lonely New Hampshire road where it all began. Skeptics still argue. Some say it was sleep paralysis, racial stress, fantasy. Others claim Betty invented details after the hypnosis. But here's what the skeptics can't explain: the matching hypnosis narratives, the physical damage to their clothes and bodies, the impact on their mental health, the star map accuracy confirmed years later. And maybe, most importantly, Betty and Barney never asked for any of it. They were two ordinary people driving home under a quiet sky, when something extraordinary pulled them out of the world they knew, and into a story that's still unfolding. This is Joshua Tree Encounters, where UFOs, cryptids, and high strangeness collide.